It's very actually easy to discern the difference between an influencer that's doing it for paid and an influencer that's genuinely interested in the product. That's why we have a call phase ourselves and why we do this. We could easily, there's tons of influence organizations that have this, here's this mass, blast of emails. Here's what I need you to do next, that type of thing. But it's very hard to audit the authenticity and the care of the influencer if there isn't some level of relationship building.
Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this. And it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Every month in 2023, we're going to do a live Q&A call for you listeners to get all of your Profit First questions answered, along with anything you might have heard on the podcast or you want to discuss about your business. They will be on the second Thursday of every month at 1 p.m. Eastern. There is a link in the show notes to register on Eventbrite. Come chat with me live. Today, we're going to chat about another way to increase your sales through influencer marketing. As always, when you start to use paid marketing, you need a solid plan in place and a commitment to dollars needed. More importantly, you need to decide how you will measure the impact and know when to pull the plug. It's a problem we see often with our clients. When you think of influencers, also realize there are micro-influencers. They don't need to be big, and they don't need to be expensive. There are ways to do this without spending a lot of dollars. You just have to think outside the box. And we'll talk about that today. Sarah Saffari is an entrepreneur and business leader that runs a boutique marketing agency specialized in strategy, influencer marketing, brand partnerships, and content creation across channels. She's worked with various organizations from service-based health brands to technology innovators. She helps them build cohesive marketing, positioning, and other content strategy across platforms to bolster visibility and brand presence. When she's not busy building brands and empires, she's either eating delightfully chunky ice cream or taking yogi headstand breaks in the office. Yeah, sometimes we got to turn things up on our head. All right, let's meet Sarah. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Sarah Saffari. It's great to have you join us today.
Great to be here.
Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, for sure. I'll do a little bit of both. I'm pretty basic. I work, I travel, I kind of live remotely, so I have somewhat of a unique life. I've been originally from Vancouver, Canada, been abroad for the last 3 years, lived in Colombia as in Colombia, the country, for almost 2 years of the whole quarantine, and moved to Mexico, where I am currently living and basically managing my team from abroad. So we have people from Colombia, we have people from Canada, US, all over the board. Few personal things. Just got super into yoga, do that on the side every weekend, super into nature, go on like long 10, 12-hour hikes when I can. And that's about it.
Have you had any struggles trying to run your business remotely?
No. Here's the thing that I say, because I've spoken to lots of people who have like in-house teams and people who don't. I think ultimately, in terms of productivity, if I'm 100% honest, I think that productivity in-house is just something completely different. However, since I never had an in-house team to begin with, and I started with building my first organization completely remote, it has always worked out, and I still was able to hit KPIs within all clientele, keep everyone on task and things like that. So it's been very fun, and it's nice having people from different areas all connect together.
And you don't have to pay rent.
You don't have to pay rent.
That's a big expense, right? Plus, you can also play geo arbitrage in the sense that depending on where your company is located, if you're in a high cost of wage area, by using the world as your source, you can get considerably lower wage costs in other locations.
Yeah, you got to hire those Canadians, their dollar is lower. No, but it's true. Yeah, exactly. Based on where they're at, like wages for them are exceptional, right? Like, for example, for Colombian staff who are getting paid in US dollars, that's exceptionally higher than any wage in their area would be. And the level of work is exactly the same. So that's not to say that we don't have US employees, which we do. It's kind of the majority. However, it is definitely beneficial in that way for sure.
Very nice. So we're here a little bit to talk about marketing, specifically influencer marketing. Can you explain what this is?
Yeah, influencer marketing, the best way to think about it, it's word of mouth at scale. So I'm assuming most people know what an influencer is, but I'll just break it down to the basics. Influencers, it could be across the board. It could be thought leaders in research study areas, or it could be your everyday influencer promoting a product or promoting clothing or whatever it is that we see every day, whether it's on TikTok, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Instagram. And I'm sure we'll dive into this more, but it's a highly powerful form of marketing in comparison to paid traditional advertising, where it's you put an ad in front of somebody, maybe they click, maybe they don't. The trust factor is substantially lower than influencer marketing because there's a reason why people are following the influencer, and the followers of the influencer have a very high trust factor with that influencer. So if things across the campaign are done accordingly, the conversions are substantially higher because, like I said, it's like word of mouth at scale. If I tell my best friend they should go watch X movie tomorrow because it was so freaking amazing, they're probably going to go see it because they trust me. They trust my recommendations. We have rapport, we have trust, all that stuff. And so that's essentially what influencer marketing is. But instead of to one or two people, to thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of people.
Can a small business do this at a reasonable cost?
It depends what reasonable cost is. What's a reasonable cost for a small business?
I think it varies on the campaign and what the return on their investment is. I guess the question is this approachable for small business?
So the short answer is 100%. So if we're talking small business, like 1 to 50 or 1 to 10, what's your range?
Probably 1 to 10, maybe even a little smaller.
Yeah, definitely. Because even most small businesses, or let's just say even a portion, smaller percentage, we'll say 30, 40%, run some form of paid advertising. And so paid advertising in and of itself, you want to spend even somewhere between $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. We're talking low ends. You can get substantially good return on your investments running that, whether it's through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, these different avenues. Influencer marketing for small businesses doesn't need to be this, let me hire this influencer with 10 million followers approach. But what the strategy needs to be is let me hire a bunch of micro and nano influencers who maybe don't have millions of followers, but they have a lot of credibility amongst the followers that they currently do have. And so they don't necessarily need to be paid enormous amounts of money, especially if you're doing it the right way and they truly believe in the service or the product that you're selling. They're not going to ask for exuberant amount of money. They're a lot of times happy to do it. And so you can run campaigns from anywhere to $1,000 to $2,000, running it across 10 to 12 influencers.
Can you set it up in such a way that it's pay for performance? In other words, are there contracts like that where you say, hey, we'll pay X% or a commission versus having to make a commitment of dollars up front?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways of doing it. So if it's a product, then you would do it off of, hey, I'm just going to give you a bunch of free product. If it's a higher ticket thing, then you would do it based off commission. So if it's a super low ticket thing, then commission alone is probably not going to be a big enough driver. So it's super dependent on what the offer is. So if I have this, app, and this app is over a course of 1 year, $30, then that's not going to, and they get 10%, that's not going to drive much incentive for them. So you could add that as an add-on to all the other things that you're going to do. But if it's, here's this $5,000, $10,000 program that someone's going through and they get a 10% cut of that, and that's enormous amount of incentive, or even a 5% cut of that, So absolutely, yes.
So what should the business owner think about before they start going down this path?
In terms of what?
Making sure that they're ready and that this is appropriate for them.
Product. I think a lot of the time people are really, really focused on marketing first. And as a marketer, I want to say put, all of your money into marketing. But I can say 100% in the first company that I started the company, I built the product, and then I said, boom, on marketing. Not talking about just influencer marketing, any form of marketing. And I just hit go. And I think that can create enough income, but can create lots of problems in the long term. So if you have a phenomenal product that actually has a differentiating factor that stands out, that people can rave about, if you put any type of marketing to that, be it influencer marketing, paid advertising, referral-based marketing, all the different kinds of ways to be able to get clientele. If the product isn't at par, sure, maybe you'll get some ROI, but the return that you could get from having campaigns based off of a really strong product is going to be substantially higher. So product first, make sure, and I think a good way to measure if you're ready with product is, have you gotten any of your clients to refer people to you? But without you asking, because think about it this way. Every single time you've given a recommendation, whether it's at a restaurant, whether it's for a movie, whether it's for a therapist, like a service, whatever it might be, it's because you felt so incredibly strong about that product that you felt inclined to tell your other friends about it because it felt so good, because you knew it was good and you didn't feel like you needed someone else to tell you to refer. So your product is good when, and I'm not saying don't ask, but I'm saying even when you don't ask, people are referring other people to you. And that's a very strong signal, if we're talking about marketing signals and when to do them, to start blasting marketing.
And I think too often people put marketing before product. They try to drive sales by spending on marketing and they don't have a plan and they don't know even why people are buying their product or what the exact problem is and the pain points to push on to get people to make those choices. So I think that's a big part of it.
I think if people don't even know the pain points of the client persona that they're trying to sell to, they're going to have a lot of trouble selling in the first place. Because if you can at least market, let's say you're a great market and your product sucks, that's going to eventually catch up to you. But maybe in your first year, you bring up a bunch of quick money revenue before it starts catching up that your product sucks. And now you have, a terrible reputation. And reputation can be gone just like that, right? And so I always think never try to seek really quick money in sacrificing your reputation. So it's another reason why product needs to come first.
And that, in order to build the right product, you need to understand your customer and their avatar.
Of course.
What are some of the key factors to make an influencer marketing campaign successful?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of things that you kind of want to focus on, right? The first one is defining the outcome. Just like anything else, what is the outcome? What is the goal? So is the goal to drive sales? Is the goal to drive brand awareness? Is the goal to drive downloads for an application? Is the goal to change the perception of a product? Right? Let's say that there's some kind of perception, you want to change that perception of a product. So really finding out what is the ultimate goal that we're trying to create here. Same thing with paid advertising, same thing with any type of organic campaign that you're going to do. The second thing is building relationships with highly specific influencers that have a roster of followers in the field that you're looking to break into, right? So seems obvious, but very, very important, because if you miss this mark, the influencer campaign is going to bomb. The third thing is thinking about long-term strategy instead of here's this one single campaign. And what I mean by that is we know that it takes anywhere from like 5 to 8 to 12 touch points for someone to even make a decision, not just a buying decision, but sometimes even to click, to express enough interest to click. So if we judge everything based off of one campaign, hence why in traditional paid advertising, we run retargeting, whether it's to the lead, whether it's to what people have seen, all these different aspects over and over again, we want to make sure that we're considering what is the long-term strategy here and for how long do we need to continue to do this until we have enough data to measure what those next steps are, right? The next thing is authenticity. And this is where it is really different than paid advertising from this area. And that's that you have an influencer. The followers know the influencer, right? Like whether it's 20,000 followers, 100,000 or multiple million, your followers know you. They're watching your stories every day. And I'm sure people who are listening to this have influencers that they follow, that they see their TikToks and their stories, and they know what they eat for breakfast and what they eat for lunch and what they just did and how much caffeine they consume and what they do on Saturday nights, because that's just how we are. And we get to know that influencer. And because the audience is so committed to this influencer and knows the influencer enough, if they come in and they're a fitness influencer and all of a sudden they're representing a furniture brand, it's a little bit weird. You know what I mean? And so that's so inauthentic and far from what that influencer does in their lifestyle and what they talk about. And this happens all the time, that it does two things. One, it's not good for the influencer because it completely ruins the credibility of the influencer, because it's obvious that they're taking these paid sponsorships, which is okay to take paid sponsorships, but not really if it's completely misaligned with what you represent and what you talk about, right? And then two, it's not good for the person who's paying for the campaign, because since that audience can sense the inauthenticity in the influencer, they're either going to hit the unfollow and certainly they're not going to click on the product. So really being able to partner with influencers who genuinely and truly believe in the product. Does there need to be some level of incentive? Of course, because you're promoting your product on their platform. What that incentive looks like, and like we talked about, can be different. However, it's very actually easy to discern the difference between an influencer that's doing it for paid and an influencer that's genuinely interested in the product. That's why we have a call phase ourselves and why we do this. There's tons of influence organizations that have this, here's this mass, blast of emails. Here's what I need you to do next, that type of thing. But it's very hard to audit the authenticity and the care of the influencer if there isn't some level of relationship building. So super important to be able to build relationships with the right influencers and make sure that if they are saying yes to the campaign, they're doing it for the right reason, because they actually like the product or app or whatever it is that you're promoting, not just because there's some kind of financial incentive to it.
So how do we determine if we're working with the right people? And the reason I say this is probably 3 times a day I'm getting hit up, right, people want to market for me. What would you do with another 20 leads a day? I'm like, I couldn't handle 20 leads a month. I don't want 20 leads a day. And honestly, I don't know how you're going to get me 20 leads a day for what I do, because it's just, but I think all business owners face this. They constantly get excited about marketing, or they're sold a bill of goods. How do you know if it's real?
Yeah, super simple. It's actually very obvious. It's more, and I'll explain, but it's more obvious, Rocky, than you would think. And this is what I mean. You know immediately in the call. So let's say, I'll give you a very solid example. Let's say I'll talk about a campaign we just ran. So we ran a campaign for a client who has a fitness tracking app. And we did the call process. And immediately you can tell the person who's into it was like, oh my gosh, I downloaded it and I saw that the B12 tracking was like a feature that I hadn't seen in this other app that I used. And when I started doing my scanning, I saw that I could use ChatGPT and integrate it with this. And look, I logged this food, and when I did this, it did this. And it was amazing. Like, you can tell who looked into it, who was actually interested in the product. I can tell from the energy. I can tell from the usability. I can tell from how much they knew about the product before they even got on the call, versus get on another call and they're like, have you downloaded the app? Yeah, I downloaded it, but I was waiting on the call to just kind of see, how this whole thing worked and just kind of just go from there. Okay, that's cool, but I can tell that you don't care. You're doing this just for paid, which it's okay, because there's lots of agencies that will accept that as long as they promote the product, and the influencer will say, pay me, throw money at me, and I'll do this. But for me, I know that a major factor is going to be the authenticity factor, and that they actually like the product, because it comes out in your content. It comes out in the way that you speak. Just like we know that if someone has a lot of conviction in what they're saying and what they're selling and how they're speaking, that we can hear that, we can smell that. And it's the exact same thing with these influencers. So if I can smell it from them that they're not into it, within 10 seconds of meeting them, and I've never followed them before, then absolutely their audience is going to be able to smell that, no matter what type of show that they put on. So all that to say, the call process deciphers everything, and it's actually very easy to see through.
That makes a lot of sense. Is there anything that people should be aware of as they go into this? Things to look out for, things to ensure that they're doing, kind of the good, bad checklist, so to speak?
Like, if someone wants to do influencer marketing, like, what are the things that I should look out for?
Yeah.
It depends. Do they want to do it themselves, or do they want to hire an influencer firm?
So let's ask the question, can they do it themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course. Just like I can run my own PR, right? Just like I can run my own marketing and my own paid advertising. There's just a ton that goes into it, right? So every aspect of marketing we can do ourselves. It just, here's these massive learning curves and massive amounts of times that it takes to do it. And we've been through that in our own skills that we now have. So the answer to that is yes, do they have the time investment to go through those learning phases to see why their campaign bombed the first 3 times and what they need to improve and continue that, all that type of stuff.
And that makes a lot of sense. I think it's true for every part of business. There's parts where you do it yourself. And a lot of times we tell clients to try it themselves so they can see. This way they have a little bit more understanding and can ask better questions.
Yes, absolutely. When I first started business, at least in the major skill building areas of messaging, sales generating, leads, learning copywriting, these types of things, and when it's a brand new entrepreneur, which might apply to some of your audience, and they'll come in and they're like, well, I want to hire a copywriter and I want to hire a salesperson because I don't like being on the phone all day. And I'm like, okay, but how are you going to know the performance of how these people are doing that you're now bringing onto your team if you have no idea what that performance is meant to look like, right? And so you're ending up shooting yourself in the foot because you're hiring out everything before you've even built even a little bit of skill to have an understanding of what it looks like to oversee it. Because at the beginning, you don't have the finances to hire someone who's so good in that area that's a multiple six-figure employee to do that for you. It has to be you. And so if you don't have the basic skills of being able to do that, aside from that being troublesome in running your business and growing your business, it's going to evidently in the long term cost you a lot of money because you don't know what's working, what isn't, what's a good job, what's a bad job. And so I think when it comes to higher level things, you just have to pick your battles, right? So for example, I give PR as an example because it's somewhat similar in the sense that you have to build relationships with journalists. You have to learn really good pitching and all these different things that can you do it? Sure, of course you can. I know people that have done their own PR, right? But the time investment it takes, the learning curves that it takes, the amount of times it won't work before it will work, the amount of things that you submit that they won't accept, like all the things that you go through. And so influencer marketing is the same thing. How do I bring on the right? What type of contracting do I do? How do I know if this person has fake followers or real followers? How do I know if this campaign is going to work as a whole? Is this enough of an audience? There's so many things that go into it. Is this person really, like we talked about, is this an authentic user who actually likes and actually genuinely enjoys the product, or is it not? How do I measure analytics? There's just so many components that go into it alongside time. Am I in a place to do that? If not, do I have the finances to pay someone to do that? And that's when you know if it's time or not.
And that's one of the things I have found with social media. People may have a large following, but their following may not take action, in which case it really doesn't matter. Because if their followers aren't going to spend money, it doesn't matter how many of them they have.
Yeah, exactly. And do you know what it takes to get them to take action from the ones who do take action? Because they could be action takers, so to speak, but what type of content catches their attention based on the product that you're trying to sell, and what type of content doesn't? Like, that's a factor of its own. What creative works, what creative doesn't work, what angle's different, what sounds like every other product that's doing the same thing as me. And what I'm finding, just in general, as a business thing, is there's so many competing products, and I'm speaking more on the product side of things. Service is a little bit different, but there's so many competing products, but no one is really, a little bit, but not really, taking the time to find like one angle that differentiates them from everyone else. It doesn't mean that like you have to just be completely innovative in what you do in every way, but you need to have one angle that sets you apart, because then why would I hire you? If you don't have high levels of extreme credibility, right? And if your brand isn't well known, then what is the difference between you and that other person that I'm going to hire, other than the fact that you're just cheaper?
I hate selling on price, especially cheaper price.
Right.
We try and get our clients to do premium pricing as much as possible.
Exactly. I'm all for it.
Interesting question. So how is this technology and all this AI, does it have any effect in this realm? And even along those same lines, some of the technology is making fake videos, right? You get a influencer almost to, you make them pretend they're supporting you.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be an effect. Like, from the influencer marketing perspective, at current, there is enough of an effect. From what I know of right now, video isn't good enough, like in terms of AI, or accessible enough, at least if they do have it, to the general public to be able to kind of game that system quite yet. And they do need to create videos. However, what I will say is it does influence the tech organizations that work with influencer marketing companies, because a lot of the tech organizations are using AI or ChatGPT and adding it as an integration feature that at this point, the tech companies that have not yet caught up with them is at current a big differentiator for them. Like, hey, here was this integration that we have that's completely different. So for example, the second campaign that we're about to run for this tech organization that's a client right now is they've integrated ChatGPT. It's a calorie tracking app. They have ChatGPT in it. You just look at the food and you say salmon, asparagus, rice, one handful of rice. It's right there. Ads as a food. You don't have to do anything, which makes you stand out because you're in a very, very competitive market. And if the biggest competitors, let's say MyFitnessPal, Lose It, the top ones don't yet have that, at least for a period of time, while you find that differentiating factor, you currently have a massive hit on everyone else.
And I think that's the biggest thing that business owners need to realize. The world is constantly changing. And if you're not constantly keeping up and changing with it, then like literally ChatGPT overnight changed everything for a lot of different things. And if you're not aware, and it happens in every single industry in very different ways, but you've got to constantly keep your systems, processes, and everything else up to date and constantly pivot, because what did work may not work tomorrow. And so that's always important. Any thoughts on how do we ensure that we're getting a good return on what we're investing in this space?
Yeah, I want to address the last thing you said, because I thought that was super important, because so often you'll see like a fear-based response to this, which is, oh, ChatGPT taking away jobs, taking away copywriters, taking away marketers, that kind of thing. It's not that way at all. It's a helping mechanism in all sorts of ways to those types of people. Will it replace some jobs? Sure, but advance yourself enough where you're not going to be replaceable by AI, because at current, you cannot replace what we have publicly, ChatGPT, with a human being. So let's say I tell ChatGPT to write a piece of copy. I can tell you right now, and I've been playing with ChatGPT now since it came out, I'm not going to trust ChatGPT's content to do my posts. Ever. I need a human to go over that, whether it's me, it's an assistant, it's an employee, whatever it might be, right? But you use it as a tool, just like anything else, right? And you embrace it as a tool. How can I do it? Okay, maybe I'm doing it for research purposes. Maybe I'm doing it for brainstorm ideas. Maybe I'm doing it for translation. Maybe I'm doing it for language. Maybe I'm doing it to review my copy. Maybe I'm doing it to see different angles, like whatever it might be. Using it as a tool amongst all the things that you're doing to make your work better than it already is, instead of fearing that this is going to now take over whatever work and job it is that you have.
That makes a lot of sense. So back to the question, how do we ensure we're getting a return on our investment in this area?
Yeah. So the return on investment is based off of knowing that you're doing all of the above steps in the right way. Finding the right client persona, reaching out to the right influencers, making sure that the content they create is authentic and it's real, making sure that, their following is authentic, real, their engagement is high, making sure that you're analyzing and reviewing things across the board, whether it's the psychological factors that drive these audiences to make buying decisions based off of the client persona that you have, whether it's the engagement metrics of the influencers that are involved in the campaign. There's a series of things that go into it that, if done correctly, will 100% bring guaranteed ROI. Those factors just have to be there. The second most important thing is at least 2 to 3 campaigns. Can you run one campaign? Sure, of course you can, and it can do really well or it can do okay, whatever it might be. However, we'll have clients sometimes ask and be like, well, what are the metrics for this? And I can say, well, this is the range in somewhat of a similar area that you've been in, but I've never ran your campaign. And anyone who tells you, I don't care what it is, whether it's influencer marketing, paid advertising, whatever it might be, that this is what we're going to see based off of what your offer is, what your branding is, what your marketing is, what your credibility is lying to you. So you need to run at least one campaign to get enough analysis and data to be able to rebuild and grow off of that before you say, this is super good or this is not good or I'm not sure if I want to do this anymore type of thing. Just like anything else, I keep comparing it to paid ads because there is a similar comparison in terms of some of the approaches. Just like if you run paid ads and someone, spends $500, and I've seen this with small business owners, spend 500. Oh my gosh, I haven't made a sale yet. I'm like, you spent $500. Like, you don't have any metrics. Like, I don't know who's responding. I don't know what audiences are good. I don't know what creative works. Maybe it's your copy. Like, you need to be able to test, because marketing is just another 9-letter word for test, and nobody knows. So we need to be able to test based off of the specificity of your product and all the other things that were just mentioned. And then now we have a basis to be able to build off of and improve off of. So I think too quick, and especially with small business owners, too quick, they get too scared of something that quote unquote isn't working, when really they just don't have enough data to make a decision appropriate to what they did. Same with, clients I have in other companies. They're like, well, you know what? Like, I'm not getting that much interest. And I'm like, well, how many conversations have you had? I'm like, oh, 5. You've had 5 conversations and you think that you don't have enough interest or enough calls because you've had 5 conversations. And so people underestimate the volume it takes and the data it takes to be able to really understand the metrics enough to make an appropriate decision based off of that.
And that's a big reason we tell people when it comes to marketing, spend the time yourself to figure out what resonates before you put money behind it. You got to constantly test and iterate until you see what's actually working, and then have a process in place to handle it. Otherwise, you're just going to overwhelm yourself and your business, and you're going to waste money. And take the time to do it right.
Yeah, there's no point in running any form of paid until you validated your offer and have gotten some significant results for even a small number of clients, right? So if you're maybe a 1 or 2 person business, you need organic first. You need organic first because now you're spending money to test messaging. You're spending money to test creative. You're spending money to test your skill, if it's high ticket, to convert the sale, because now you need to know how to have a conversation. You need to know different personality types. You need to know objection handling. You need to know all these different skills that is required to be able to convert these people. And now you spent thousands of dollars and you still haven't learned that thing yet. And now you feel stressed because you're in debt.
And that's what we like to avoid.
Exactly. Profit first.
Profit first. Thank you so much for joining us today. If people would like to learn more about you and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Of course. They can either just say hi to me, connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Sarah Saffari, Sarah with an H, Saffari, like you're going on a safari, but with 2 F's instead of 1. And then you can see the website if they want to check it out. It's just suiteinnovators.com. So www.suiteinnovators.com.
We'll put it in the show notes. Thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks, Rocky. Thanks for having me.
Thinking through what you're trying to do and what it will take up front is important. People always want to skip this step, and then they wonder why they didn't see results. Some marketers don't even know how to do this step, and so they're just happy to take your money. That is why you need to ask good questions, including how long will it take to see results? What are the expected spends to be able to achieve that? Can they show you the math? And what's your plan to pull the plug if it's not working? I remember working with one business owner. He had brought on this big agency with a massive budget. And literally, he pulled the plug in 3 weeks because it wasn't going well. But he already knew how to measure. He knew what the outcomes should be. And so he was able to save himself a ton of wasted money. I hope you can too. This is what we help our clients with. And it's part of the Profit Blueprint program as well, where you figure out the math for your products and how profitable they are and how to make it all work. In marketing, as everything else, you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. Remember to focus on the bottom line.
If you'd like for us to be a part of your profitability journey, we have different programs available ranging from do-it-yourself to one-on-one coaching. Our course, The Profit Blueprint, teaches you everything you need to know to transform your profitability. There are 3 different tiers ranging from DIY to done with you so that businesses of all sizes can get the support that's best. Join the waitlist in the show notes to get more information and be a part of the next cohort. If you want a done for you service, you can hire us as your chief profitability officers. We only work with a handful of clients, so they all get our full attention. We work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $10 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on our calendar for a good fit conversation to see if we're the right people to support you and how we can help you.
This episode of the Profit Answer Man podcast is brought to you by SMBpodcastnetwork.com. The network is a collection of podcasts and shows from around the internet which focus on bringing you interviews with amazing guests who share actionable advice, ideas, and information for small and medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs. Visit www.smbpodcastnetwork.com to find more great shows and easily subscribe to be notified of new episodes. It's a great way to discover quality content. If you've discovered us via the network, then I hope you enjoy today's show and will consider subscribing directly so you never miss our episodes. Remember to check out my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we talk about how to live the ultimate life and be the best business owner you can be. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.